to just quickly introduce myself and my colleague. My name's Mark Wickware. I'm with Growthspace. Growthspace is a talent development platform that is there to really elevate and bring out the best versions of your employees while measuring an impact for the business. And we're delighted to have one of our customers in a fireside chat to get to know her and learn more about what she's been doing. So my friend here, Deidra Busbee, I'd love her to introduce herself, tell us a little bit about her role and responsibility as a Senior Director of L&D and the company ServiceNow that she works for. So Deidra.
Great, thanks. This is my first of these events. So first of all, I've met a lot of you and I have enjoyed it. And my new BFF, Karen, I feel like I've seen her in every session. I appreciate being here and getting to know you, and I've taken a million notes. My role at ServiceNow, I'm really all about growth, and it's part of my personal brand, and it's what I do at ServiceNow. I care about growing myself. I care about growing my team. I care about growing every single employee. So when we think about talent development, we really do pick that apart, and it is all about developing our talent using all the different mechanisms. So I'm enjoying my growth sitting here with you.
If you could, maybe we could start with this question for the audience. What aspects of L&D today ignite you and bring out your passion and what you do every day? What are the things that have really that you could highlight to the team about that?
I loved the question in the previous session where they asked how many of us started in HR, and clearly the vast majority of us didn't. I certainly didn't. And when I first moved into learning and development, it was like you identified a need, and that was your nail, and so you built a hammer, and then every time you saw that nail, you just hit it with that same hammer. And then we sort of evolved, and it became more of a problem of plenty, where we have so much to offer our employees that they're slightly overwhelmed. It's like walking through Vegas trying to look at light bulbs. There's just too much. And so what really ignites my passion right now is this next phase that we're entering, which is all about that mass personalization. It's taking the 1 million things that you could use to grow your employees and bringing it into that curriculum for one. And I'm using the term curriculum loosely because that curriculum for one is really all the different growth mechanisms that we can bring to our employee, but doing it in a meaningful way so that it meets their needs. We're really starting with their why. That's what I'm most excited about. It's skills plus AI, plus that employee experience in a big way.
Just for the audience, I think if I could, we'll step back for a quick second. Could you give them just a elevator pitch of who ServiceNow is and what their business is all about for those that may not be aware of ServiceNow?
Sure. And for those of you that have any kind of ticketing system, you may actually know us and not know that you know us. But we are a software company, and our mission is we make the world work better for everyone. And that really is truly how we try to live it out. And when I think about who we are, our culture, that component of it, we take that very seriously. Our 4 values and the commitment we make to our employees, we call it our People Pact. And it is to do your best work, live your best life, and fulfill our purpose together. So we are very much a culture-driven company in a tech space.
Great. Well, thank you. We've gone through tremendous change since the start of COVID, and even prior to COVID. There's been incredible disruption. HR, if it wasn't already elevated to the executive suite, truly took a seat at the table and was, I would say, in the midst of chaos. It didn't stop there. As we came out of COVID, we went into a number of different elements, and we've had to find ways of navigating through this disruption. You've experienced it in ServiceNow. You've seen that firsthand. Can you share with the audience what that's been like over the last couple of years and what things you've put in place to survive and thrive in that chaos?
Absolutely. We've all had some seriously shared experiences of disruption over the past several years. Whether it was COVID and we all had to learn to work from home while homeschooling a 9-year-old who had no interest in being homeschooled, to finding your pants again and trying to go back into the office, right? I mean, These are truly shared experiences across the world and culturally within our companies. And so when I think about some of those like major disruptions, the things that I appreciate, yeah, I think you showed me something that you were going to pull up in that slide. I love this list. He showed this to me just before, and it's such a great list. I'm like, oh, yep, yep, that whole list. That is a shared disruptions list that we all have felt. We in global people teams more than maybe anyone else because this hits us just right in the heart. But when I think about like how this disruption impacts us in global people and how we engage our teams, I think there's this also this shared knowledge that when we run up against something that is challenging, our brains are turned on. There's a reason that teachers quiz, right? If a teacher says they're gonna, I love our teachers in the room. There's a reason that if a teacher says, I'm gonna quiz you in 5 minutes, you're gonna learn more in that 5 minutes than you are any other time that day, right? And your brain is turned on. So as we think about going through these disruptions, it's a little bit like that. And that right amount of stress actually turns our brains on and gives us an opportunity to engage our people in a new and different way. So when I think about it, from an employee standpoint, I both get nervous and excited, but I also think about it from a brand standpoint. And I loved the session just before ours where we talk about like, do you stand by those values? You
Right.
know, is your mission holding true during COVID-19? Is it holding true during the quiet quitting? You know, are you still true to that? And if you are, great. But there are a lot of companies that have struggled with that, I think, over the years. But it really does reveal who we are. Like, am I still helping people to do their best work when they're trying to find their pants and come into the office a couple of days a week?
That's great. I appreciate that. If reflecting on 2023, what are some of the things you put in place through 2023, through the economic downturn, the issues that we're dealing with high interest rates and justification of every dollar that you're spending to set yourself up for 2024 and beyond?
It's such a good question. We know we're sitting on this gold mine of talent, and you are too. And we've got to figure it out. We've got to get more insights into our employee populations. Their expectations of us are increasing. Our expectations of them are increasing. And even with something as disruptive as AI is going to be, we know AI is going to impact certain parts of our population greatly. And I'm blessed to be at a big tech company where there are people who are industry leaders in it, and they're taking the stage. Like we've got the sage on the stage sitting there in our company. But every single one of our 23,000 will be impacted by AI. So I think one of the things that we've learned in 2023 is the way we approach this skill building is meaningful. And in fact, at dinner last night, we were sitting with someone, we were talking about how like we need to get past the awareness of AI and how are you practically using it? And I just kept thinking that's kind of what we come back to. So we think about learning with the 4 E's. So it's your exposure, your expectations, your education, and your experiences. And so we've used that in lots of places. We're going to use it with AI. And I think the next big challenge for us is like, how do we take building skills in that meaningful way? And now coming into AI, if we're not using AI to build those skills, like what are we doing with AI, right?
Right.
So we've got to apply it in a new way while still, kind of sticking to those 4 big experiences.
With all of that, how have you incorporated and what areas have you brought Growthspace in to kind of help support some of those things for you?
So when we first started looking at a new vendor, I was really looking for coaching, but I wasn't looking for traditional, like the old school leadership coaching. I mean, there are a lot of coaches, probably half of the people in this room, you're a certified coach. There's a place for that. But when you think about coaching, we need to think broader than just those leadership coaching. We need to move away from that counselor impression. And so has anybody else coached youth sports? I coached club volleyball for years. And while I did care about leadership, I also really cared about a float serve and a block. Right. So we're thinking about those really meaningful skills that I wanted those girls. They're 13, but still I wanted them to think about this. when we think about it at ServiceNow, we're thinking about coaching in that way. We're thinking about coaching. It is a very personalized skill building. And we look at our population and we say, where are these people that we want to really invest in? So we want to elevate the employee experience for everyone by doubling down on key populations like our executives, our high potentials, and our managers. We believe that if we invest in our managers in a meaningful way, everyone's employee experience is going to be better. So Growthspace comes in and plays a role with us. One, it's in lots of the different E's, right? It's exposure. So if you're working on a skill and we can partner you with an expert in that particular skill, you're going to get exposure to what great really looks like. Then we want to also give you the chance to, you're learning, you're also getting a chance to practice it. So your coach is a safe to fail person.
Right.
So if I'm working on executive presence, I want a chance to practice that with someone. And my coach, so I have a coach and she's in for that. She's like, let's hear how you're going to approach this C-level meeting where you're going to convince them to give you more money. Right? So she's actually letting me practice that before I get in. So we really plug Growthspace into, we think about populations, we think about the prioritized skills that we want to develop, and we also think about it as a reward for somebody that we want to invest in. This is an investment in an employee that we see a bright future. We don't offer coaching, and we're really trying to change the impression that some people have, which is, oh, you've got a problem, let me give you a coach. No, if you've got a problem, if your level of jackassery is really high, I'm probably not going to pay Growthspace to come in. I'm going to give you a really tough manager who's going to lean in with you and help set some new expectations. But if I'm giving you a coach, I want you to know it's because we see some major potential in you. We want you to rise to that occasion.
That's great. Our research tells us that giving coaching and mentoring to individuals at the first level management, supervisory level, those types of roles really moves the needle within an organization. When you're thinking about the results that you're seeing and some of the output that you've seen, what are the measurements looking like, and what types of measurements do you look at when you think about this stuff? And I think it's important because at some point, as we showed on the slide, budgets get tight and get cut, and it's important to show the business that there is an impact happening. So what have you been doing around that?
I mean, we start with thinking about measurements. And so when we're picking an audience, so we're going to try something new. When we think about coaching, we think about it in moments that matter. We also think about it with cohorts. So when we think about a cohort, I looked at what's that population that if I could only invest in one population, it would be this. And so we are looking at our new managers. They're newly promoted to manager, so their brain is turned on. They just got a lot of new responsibilities. And my high potentials. So that's a group I want to double down on and I want to get them into. And I don't believe in requiring something. I want the employee to have the agency to select it, but I want to position it really well so they go and they get a coach. And then I'm looking long term. Can I say that because I invested in this person, their team is more productive, their team is more engaged? We have employee voice surveys, like I think so many of us do. Do their results look better? Did they achieve their goals? And we need to move away from that throughput. Throughput is easy. We all measure throughput, and we need to, right? I'm not saying we shouldn't. And we're going to ask that employee, well, how was your experience? I do care if they're happy. I want it to feel like a gift, but right. I also want to get past that and move into those real value indicators. Like, what's the return on investment for this? And that part's a little bit hard. And someone in the previous one mentioned, like, it's really hard to say that this happened because of this one thing. But we have a sizable enough population that we believe through those metrics I mentioned, but also through sentiment analysis and other things, we believe we'll be able to say, someone who went through this kind of coaching, we received this kind of output. And if we can get to that, people have a tendency to give you money, right? I ran a high potential program a few years ago where anyone who went to this program, these were only high potentials, keep in mind, and at that point I was in a big consulting practice. If you went to this event, I had a 95% chance of keeping you for at least 3 years. I mean, they were just writing me checks worth of millions of dollars, right? Because I was saving us money. we've got to get to that with all these individual coaching programs too. I want to be able to say that you're a new manager, part of this cohort. We want you to focus on one of these prioritized skills. We know what skills we value as a company, so we want you to work on building trust or delivering value through others, things like that. Select one of these, go all in, and we believe that we'll be able to measure the result of that in terms of employee happiness, employee engagement, and productivity.
That's great. You talked about a couple of things there on the measurement scale. So retention's one of them. For your organization, how important is that number and keeping that number down and looking at that number at the executive level? What does it mean to ServiceNow?
Well, and it's important, like really at all levels. I mean, retention of our high performers, of our high potentials, is hard everywhere. And we find no shortage of opportunities for our high potentials to go someplace else. So absolutely, absolutely. And honestly, that's probably the biggest metric I'm going to have when it comes to retaining our people, when it comes to investments in talent development is retention. And we all know the stats. If you, based on your generation, you are more likely to leave based on your growth opportunities than anything else. And if we take that to heart, we want to provide those growth opportunities. And we want to do it in a meaningful way. I mean, like we talked about at the beginning, it's not enough to say, hey, we have these 1 million things you can do. But is there a way to say, you have these 5 skills, you need these 7 skills in these proficiencies? Can we deliver that up to you and say, based on building trust, here are recommendations? And make it really easy for them so they learn it from an expert and not from YouTube.
Yeah.
So that experience is going to get us not just better employees, not just better engagement, but they're going to stay.
Well, I think you highlighted a key point. The data of over 10,000 engagements that we've been involved with organizations tells us that giving them coaching and mentoring has an opportunity to have a huge impact upwards of, and we've measured this through A/B testing with user groups and doing proof of concepts, that it can be as impactful as 50% improvement in attrition. That says a lot. So, and what is that measurement? Willingness to stay in the organization, people believing in me. The other piece of a measurement, and many of you may do this in your organizations today, is you may measure net promoter scores or engagement scores of some kind. And again, if you can move the needle, which we've seen in the data, that tells us that you can move it by 7 to 15% on your, or points on your net promoter scores in areas. I was talking to somebody that said we're currently at 19 today, and we have aspirational goals to get to 40. And I know that we've seen data that proves out that we've moved groups by 15 points in as little as 3 months. That is incredible results. So I think it's important to show that kind of payback at the same time as making sure that the employees really feel the benefits of having individualized coaching and mentoring, because not each one of us in this room that all may be looking for improving their communication skills has the exact same tags or areas that they're looking to improve in. Some need certain things more than others, and it's really important to have a solution that can be very adaptable to the individuality of everyone in the room.
And just based on that too, I think it is individual, but I think it's also like there's a way to prioritize skills and then let it be applied individually. That this generation that's entering the workforce now, that's a basic expectation. They know it's no longer enough for us to say, these are the things you need to know and how you need to do that job. I think we were talking in the previous session, there's so much about the agency that person has, and they own that, and they own that skill building, and they're going to develop that skill in the way that they want. We want to serve it up in a way that they just like really grab onto that. Yeah. And just to go back to, you reminded me of something, the moments that matter. We talked a little bit about the cohorts, but I want to talk for a second about the moments that matter, because I think that's that individualization that you're talking about too. If like moments, we define moments that matter in lots of different ways at different companies. So you get a promotion, you come back from maternity leave, you join the company and you're a veteran and you're now trying to figure out how do you apply relatable skills to a different environment. And so any of those moments, we want there to be something in our HRIS that like flags and says, okay, this person's back from maternity leave. They might feel a gap right now. How do we come alongside them with some enablement? And so those are really like one-off sorts of coaching opportunities that we want to capitalize on. So, and the thing that I love about it, and the reason, honestly, another reason that we chose Growthspace is it's very scalable for that. So in a company of 23,000, we always have somebody coming back from maternity leave. Can we come alongside them and say, as you come back in, here are 5 skills that we often see that you might want to develop right now, or that we could come alongside you. And that's an opportunity. And I will mention too, I love the sprints. So if you're not already working in sprints, Growthspace does a 5-session sprint. So this can be an hour a week for 5 weeks. It doesn't have to be, you're not signing up for an annual coaching relationship. You're signing up for a bite size. And I think that's another requirement by the entering generation. But I'm saying my generation really likes it. Like we didn't know to ask for that, you know.
So tell us a little bit about your journey. You're on one right now.
Yeah.
What's it like? What have you experienced? Share it with the group.
It's hard. It's hard. Does anybody have an executive coach? Just me? I'm the only one? Okay, thank you. Thank you. I felt a little vulnerable there. Like, surely someone else out here has one.
Another coaching company.
Right.
Which is great.
Right. Well, if you don't, y'all need to get one. Let's just start there. No, because I do believe in growth and it's such an integral part to who I am and who I want my team to be. I signed up for it and I really loved this process. And I sound like I'm such a Growthspace fan. I came into it really critical. Can we really do this in 5 sessions? Well, my coach believes we can. Her name is Deborah, so shout out to her. I kind of wrote about what it was, how I wanted to grow. I'm in a new role at a fast-growing company. I've been at ServiceNow for 2 years, and I've changed roles multiple times, multiple managers. I want to be on whatever the biggest need is. Like, throw me your biggest problem. I'm in. So, new role, new manager. I told her I wanted to be able to manage that well. We're going to go through some organizational change. I want my team to grow through change. You know, help me help my team grow through change. So our very first session, she's like, send me whatever you've got. She wanted my Clifton Strengths Finders, you know, shout out to the achievers and learners in the room. She just wanted my 360 feedback. She wanted all of that. She gathered that up. And in our first session, we really nailed down what we were going to work on. And we started working. And about 45 minutes into this session, I'm looking at my watch thinking, I have got so much information. Like I was a little overwhelmed in the best possible way. She gave me homework. And I went into my next session, same thing, just a really powerful 1-hour session. And by the end of the second session, I knew I had confidence that I was going to move the needle on my skill set in 5 sessions. And I'm not guaranteeing I'm going to stop after 5 sessions because I have some other things I'd like to work on as well.
So given that we have about 5 minutes left before things wrap up, does the audience have any questions for Deidra that they would like to know a little bit more about the work that she's doing in L&D and where it's going? Anything at all? Any thoughts and feedback from the group?
Oh, yep. There's like a light right behind you.
It's very hard, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Great kind of experiences, and I think this is going to be quite the focus area in terms of what we need to look at. I think the corporate training sector is forecasted to go up like 8% annual revenues and by I think by 2030, like they are predicted to get to over 485 billion. So I think like this is definitely an area of focus. I'm curious because one of the things, and I think again, like the slide that you put up with the timeline of all the things that everyone is dealing with. And I think that the Gallup's latest report also kind of reiterated that, where it kind of talked about how employees are feeling more disconnected with their employers these days, as per the latest report. And part of it is like there's so much happening. I think like that's the thing, like we don't know how to process all this information. yet. And I'm just curious because part of feeling connected to the purpose, feeling connected to the organization goes to a lot of how we can grow in there, how we can develop and see ourselves thriving in that environment. And I'm just curious, like how you are articulating that message. You talked quite a bit about, you know, encouraging people, showing them the value of this, so they are signing up for these opportunities. How, again, like, I'm curious, like the how you're kind of putting that message across to connect it, and really kind of bring it back to the purpose and giving them that feeling that this is an environment where they can thrive.
Yeah, it's such a great question. Again, because we know people will stay where they can grow. And the first thing I think about with that is, one, we have to be really clear on what we value. And if we can be really clear and even down to a skills level, if I can say across the company that there are these 4 skills and we're going to all get really good at this, like we're going to all get really good at collaboration, and we bring that kind of clarity, I think that helps. I think the other big thing that's going to help, it's that AI plus skills. So if any of you are on ServiceNow, know that we are as well. We are customer zero. So we're drinking the Kool-Aid before it even gets to you, and we're trying to fix some things before it gets to you. So we have this employee growth and development platform, and in that we have skills, and we have skills assigned to you as a person, skills assigned to training, skills assigned to roles. It becomes kind of that common language. And we believe that if we can say, you've got these skills, you need these skills, we can generate that curriculum for one, right? So from an L&D perspective, I care a lot about that. I also, from a performance management, I care a lot about it as well, because I want to be able to say, there's this role that we have that we need to fill, and it requires these kinds of skills. Who do we have in the company that has that? And we remove that proximity bias. It's no longer about, who reports to Mark that can step in on a succession plan, but who across the company has the kind of skills that he has. And then from an employee standpoint, my boss, Sarah Tilley, did this really great bit during our employee kickoff where she said, if I want to be the next CEO, and she brings up the skill set required on CEO. She's got her skill sets. She now has a plan for what skills she needs to grow to get into that next role. She doesn't have to be on his succession plan. She just has to decide that's what she wants. And so we really want to enable that you can see yourself here because you can see a path to grow to whatever that is. Whether you're moving from engineering into sales, sales into global people into legal. Can you see a path forward? Can it be something that inspires you? And if you don't, we're just going to make it that path, like to that next level up, because we're going to show you something exciting. Did that answer your question? Okay.
My question is around connecting this all to the day-to-day work. I think when I think about the big leaps I've taken in my career, it's in my development, it's been about the work that I do every day and not about taking a class. And I struggle sometimes because I think many of our employees are like, well, I took the classes that you told me to take, and fail to see the connection between the connections they make in the workplace every day and the work that they do every day and how critical that is to their development. So I'm curious if you can talk about sort of making that connection a little clearer for people, because it's an area of opportunity.
I think we need to stop thinking about like sending someone to an individual course, but developing a skill that's going to advance you. And so whatever your career aspiration,
Like not checking the box type of thing
right.
that we've been asked to do many times just on a pure compliance level.
Mm-hmm. Anytime somebody requires training, I assume that it's going to be really boring, and I hit play and we go make our coffee and we try to test out of it early. But if we can say, here's a skill that we believe if you develop this skill, your career will advance. There's either something getting in your way or there's just a gap in the skill that you need. And if we focus on that and that skill development and we reward the kind of growth, I think that's the real connection. And it moves away from a course and moves into exposure to something inspirational. It moves into being measured differently. Like, can we measure a way to show that somebody had the skill growth? And that's where I think like some of the personalization comes into it as well.
Yeah, it is very individualized that way for the person. And 2 pieces very quickly to your question. One, you can drive it from the talent themselves, the individual themselves feeling like she or he has this area that they want to work and focus on. But if you actually work alongside your manager and you have a real conversation, either through your performance reviews or others, of this is an area that will allow you to perform better in your current role and set you up for success in the future, and there's agreement on that, you get a nice measurement out of that. Not only does the employee get to decide what she or he wants to work on with the support of their manager, but the manager can see afterwards the impact that it's had on that employee, and it isn't self-reported anymore. You now have a measurement capability back to the business to see that outcome.
Yeah.
Does that help?
And it's honestly, it's a whole lot easier on you too if it's a skill base, because then they have the agency to decide how they want to do it. And it's not a do this thing, check the box, get this reward, which is really hard for us to do, right?
So I want to take this moment to say thank you so much for Deidra and sharing her thoughts and ideas.
Thanks
Really
for having
appreciate
me. It was, thank you.
it. And I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Thank you.
Thank you.